I am John DeVore. Welcome to the channel. I am back from Munich, the high-end Munich, the big hi-fi show in Germany. The biggest, I don't know if it's the biggest in the world. There may be bigger hi-fi shows in Asia, but it's the biggest, by far the biggest hi-fi show I've ever been to. And I've been going for the last several years. I used to be an exhibitor there. Now I go as a tourist. It's an expensive show. I have to say, I miss exhibiting at it, but the stress reduction going as a tourist is immense. Also, this year, all of my meetings just fell into place. I went with maybe half a dozen or like 8 meetings scheduled, sort of placed here and there in my iPhone calendar app. And I ended up with at least more than double that number just because it all fell into place. So some of the meetings were from people who saw a video that I was going to be in Munich and said, "Hey, I know you're going to be in Munich and I wanted to have a meeting." So I had a meeting with a potential Italian distributor who I met that way. We were able to schedule a meeting. I had several meetings just based on running into that person. So Peter he's my Scandinavian distributor, PS Audio. I ran into him in one of the rooms and we ended up having an excellent lunch and a great, very productive meeting. Mafiko Garmt, he's staying in the same hotel as me, so we had a breakfast meeting. Speaking of breakfast, thank you so much, Christian, for another breakfast meeting, more casual, I would say, than a meeting. But thank you so much for treating me to a wonderful breakfast after my red-eye flight into Munich. I was very out of sorts, and that really helped get things going. So I really appreciate it. It was, I would say, my most enjoyable moment of my whole trip. And playing me your beautiful Oh Babies. I really appreciate it. It was eye-opening listening to that old acoustic masterpiece amplifier. Just wonderful. Anyway, beautiful system, fantastic breakfast, incredible, warm, generous host. Thank you. Thank you also to the Silbatone crew, including Mr. Chung himself, but also to my dear friends J.C. Morrison, Frank Schroeder, who's also in that room. His turntables are always featured in that room. Anyway, a number of those guys. It was great to see Daniel Kim again, also in that room, the Silbatone room. Just wonderful. And again, thank you for the generosity of a wonderful dinner. It's great always to see Arndt, my distributor in Germany. Had another great dinner with Arndt and Frank Schroeder. Wonderful. Had an amazing meeting, also spontaneous, with the showrunner of High End, Stefan. That was very cool. Stefan, thank you also for your hospitality and especially your generosity, because here I am coming in not even as an exhibitor anymore, so you're not making any money off of me, but I really appreciate the hospitality. A few spontaneous videos that I helped out. I actually had my first real conversation with young gun. I feel like he's so young, he's not even a young gun at this point, but Luca Chesky. We did a little video interview for High End while I was there, and I had a nice chat with Luca, which is very cool, very bright, interesting, upcoming dude there in our industry. So anyway, it was wonderful. It was great. I had a wonderful time. I brought back my usual very low key cold. I'm definitely battling a really low key little cold in right in here, clogged up. I feel a little bit like I've got some corks floating around in my head. But it's not bad, I have to say. Not as bad as it's been some years. So one of the things I found out about right before I went to Munich, there's an art exhibition happening that closes today. So I'm going to go later on today. And it is The Art of Sid Mead. Sid Mead, I think he called himself a futurist. Sid Mead is an illustrator. He's an art director. He's a designer, and he is, in my opinion, most famous for designing much of the world of Blade Runner, the 1982 movie by Ridley Scott. Absolutely one of the greatest movies of all time. That is the final cut or the director's cut. Not as much the theatrical release, although the theatrical release is still an excellent movie. But the way that it was meant to be is an excellent movie. One of my absolute favorites. And I have a confession to make. I am a massive sci-fi nerd. And so, I so much so the very first, and I think I've talked about this in other videos, maybe or maybe not for this channel, but definitely for other channels where I talked about my record collection and collecting records and early on. And what comes up early on, the first record that I ever bought with my own money is that soundtrack. Absolutely played the bejesus out of this record. Love that record, and you know what? It has a life of its own. You know, that music, so iconic. There's so much amazing sci-fi soundtrack music out there, but you gotta love that. Or even this. This one is insane. I don't know if I've played this one. Maybe I'll play this one in the outro. This is a metal band that plays only Star Wars music. But I was a crazy sci-fi maniac as long as I can remember. It wasn't even triggered by Star Wars. I mean, I saw Star Wars when it came out. I believe I must have been 10 because it came out before my birthday. And that movie was a revelation for me. But I loved the OG Star Trek. I loved, when I was a little kid, getting these weird glimpses of, there's a British sci-fi show called UFO, which I remember just sort of getting these weird late night glimpses here and there. I don't think I ever even watched a whole episode when I was a kid because I was really young. But then its close cousin, Space 1999, I loved when I was a kid. I loved it. Sort of hard science fiction, hard-ish. I wouldn't say it was truly hard sci-fi, but the way the eagles flew and the effects of that, really loved it. Loved the soundtrack to that as well. So many great soundtracks. Obviously, the soundtrack to Blade Runner Vangelis is one of the great classics. The Thing, John Carpenter, amazing. Or Escape from New York, another one of his soundtracks, really awesome. Tron soundtrack, another classic, of course. The soundtrack, the very early electronic music soundtrack from Forbidden Planet, seriously cool soundtrack there. And a sci-fi high-end audio mix. So the incredibly advanced alien race in Forbidden Planet was named the Krell, which is clearly where Dan D'Agostino got his amplifier company name in the 1980s. The Krell Corp, very cool connection there. There was even in the 80s or in the 90s there was a company called Sci-fi. There was a hi-fi company called Sci-fi, Scientific Fidelity, that made really cool, very unusual, out-of-the-box thinking stuff, speakers and tube amplifiers. Very cool shit. Short-lived, sort of a short-lived company, but very cool stuff. My love for sci-fi runs very deep. I love the world building in sci-fi. So in Star Wars, the world that Macquarie and Joe Johnston built, it's a world that really feels there and vivid. And the world that Sid Mead built in Blade Runner, another really solid incredible world. Giger's alien designs for Alien. Just another, just really amazing world building there. To such extent that I was able to really lose myself in a really different reality. Really important to me. You know, I'm not a. I have. So what I'm going to show now. These are not guns. These are gun-shaped objects. These are replicas of the prop guns. So that is, I'm sure a lot of people recognize that. That's Han Solo's blaster from the original trilogy. Legendarily made from a World War I Mauser. That's a Mauser pistol. It's a replica of a Mauser pistol. This never in any part of this has ever been or intended to be a gun. But I love props. You know, I'm not a gun guy, but I love props. I have two. My only two guns are just these props. This is Deckard's handgun from Blade Runner, of course. This is not a Sid Mead design. This was the Sid Mead handgun is cool, but it's not as cool as this one. This is just one of the coolest. The two triggers, and it's a beautiful. It's a beautiful prop with a barrel, with rounds. Not guns. These are gun-shaped objects. And I have nothing against gun owners, actual gun owners. My dad comes from a family in Texas where, for fun, he and his older brother would sneak around with their .22 and try to shoot the tails off cats without killing them. That's not something I necessarily approve of, but I know guns. I've shot guns. I dig them in their way, so this is not a pro-gun, anti-gun message in any way. But anyway, I am very much looking forward to seeing Sid Mead illustrations in the flesh. They're really beautiful. Technique, super cool. Almost the opposite of... I'm pointing up there because it's a book of all of the Macquarie paintings, production paintings, and I believe some of his glass matte paintings for the original trilogy, Star Wars. That's why I'm pointing up there. But I'm very much looking forward to seeing Sid Mead's work in person. Very different technique from Macquarie, or Giger for that matter. But cool stuff, very cool stuff. That was a bit of a ramble. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just play. I'm going to play little excerpts from all three of these Star Wars records. Maybe I'm going to find maybe I'll find a one cut that all three of them play in their various, very different styles. Anyway, it's great to be back. Great to be back in front of the camera. See all of you guys. Be seen by you guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the next video.